All right, today we're jumping into a really pivotal moment from early Islamic history. It's a story all about tough negotiations, a powerful tribe, and what happens when faith and compromise collide. This is the story of the Delegation of Thaqeef.
So think about this for a second. How does a community go from violently rejecting a message to the point of murdering the person who brings it, to completely embracing that very same faith? It's a wild transformation, right? And the story behind it? Wow. It's a masterclass in patience, wisdom, and sticking to your principles.
You know, this story doesn't kick off with a friendly handshake. Nope. It starts with a tragedy, an act of violence that, and this is the crazy part, actually opens the door to peace. So, let's set the scene.
Okay, so picture this. We're in the city of At-Taaif. This isn't just any city. It's a fortress, home to the super powerful and proud Thaqeef tribe. These guys were a big deal, strong, high status, and really attached to their old ways. And right at the heart of this tribe is a guy named Urwah ibn Mas'ood. Now, he wasn't just some leader. He was loved. I mean, truly beloved by his people. What he said went. But then he takes a trip, meets the Prophet Muhammad, and embraces Islam. And just like that, everything changes.
And the speed of this change is it's stunning. Urwah comes back home, gets up on his fortress wall, and calls his people to the new faith. And that love they had for him, it vanished, instantly replaced with pure hatred. They didn't even argue with him. They just answered with a volley of arrows, and he was fatally wounded.
But here's the thing. His martyrdom wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning. In the aftermath, the Thaqeef tribe kind of had this moment of realization. They understood that this new movement wasn't just going to fade away. They'd killed the man, but the message was still there. So they knew they had to deal with it head-on, and they sent a delegation of 6 men to Medina.
So this delegation, which was formed right after this really violent act, heads to Medina. And you can imagine they're probably expecting a pretty cold, maybe even hostile reception. But what they got was the complete opposite.
Instead of anger or confrontation, the Prophet offered incredible hospitality. He had a special tent set up for them, and get this, it was right next to his mosque. This was genius. It meant they could just listen. They could hear the Qur'an being recited, they could see the Muslims praying, they could feel the vibe of the community firsthand. It wasn't an argument, it was an invitation through experience.
So while the senior members of the delegation are busy with all the political stuff, something really interesting is happening on the sidelines, something driven by just a quiet, genuine search for truth.
You see, when the leaders would take a break during the hot part of the day, the youngest guy in the group, Uthmaan ibn Abu al-As, would slip away. He used that quiet time to go find the Prophet and his companion Abu Bakr. He wasn't negotiating, he was learning, asking questions, listening to the Qur'an, just trying to actually understand what this was all about.
And you better believe that didn't go unnoticed. The Prophet saw this young man's sincerity, his quiet determination, and his genuine thirst for knowledge. While everyone else was focused on political gains, Uthmaan was focused on spiritual understanding. And, as we'll see, that ends up being a huge deal.
Okay, so now we get to the real core of this visit, the negotiations. The delegation came ready to wheel and deal. They basically wanted to tweak the religion to make it fit with the cultural habits their people were used to back home. Their leader, a man named Abd al-Layl, he steps up and lays out their terms. He explains, look, our people are accustomed to certain things. And so he asks for a pass on 3 big issues: fornication, usury, and alcohol.
First up, fornication. They argued, hey, our men, they travel a lot, it's hard for them. The response wasn't a counteroffer, it was a recitation of the divine command straight from the Qur'an, a clear boundary set by God. So the answer was a flat no.
Next, they tried usury. Interest. They're like, but our whole economy is built on this. And again, the response was a direct quote from the Qur'an, a clear prohibition. The message was simple. A believer's finances have to be pure. So, nope, that was a no too. Their third request? Alcohol. They tried to downplay it, saying, oh, it's just the juice of our grapes. We can't live without it. But again, the divine law was presented as absolute. It was an abomination to be avoided. So, you guessed it, another firm no.
So having struck out on changing the rules for their social habits, they went for the big one, the absolute heart of their old faith, their main idol, Ar-Rabbah. They argued that destroying it would terrify their people, especially the women and children.
So they make their first offer. Okay, just let us keep it for 3 years. To ease people into this new faith.
The answer was immediate and uncompromising: no. The core of Islam is worshiping one God and one God alone. There could be no partners, not for 3 years, not even for a day.
You can almost feel the desperation, right? They start haggling. Okay, what about 2 years? 1 year? Come on, just 1 month? And every single time the answer was the same: no. The principle of monotheism was simply not negotiable. So finally, in a last-ditch effort, they asked to be excused from the prayers. And this is where the Prophet's response just echoes through history. He said, "There is no good in a religion in which there is no prayer." And that was it. That was the final lesson. Faith isn't just something you say you have, it's something you do.
Having accepted Islam on these really firm, unshakable terms, there was one last thing to do. It wasn't enough to just agree to the truth in a treaty. The symbol of falsehood had to be removed, not just physically, but from the minds of the people.
And man, what a scene this was. The Prophet sent a team to destroy Ar-Rabbah. A man named Al-Madeenah stepped up with a pickaxe. He hits the idol once, and then he dramatically falls to the ground, pretending he's been mortally wounded. The people of Thaqeef freak out. They think their idol is fighting back. But then Al-Madeenah jumps back up, laughing, and completely shatters their superstition. He showed them it was just a powerless stone, and then he demolished it. And just like that, the journey was complete. The same delegation that came to bargain for their old ways went home as new Muslims. And guess who was appointed as their new leader? None other than Uthmaan ibn Abu al-As. Yep, the youngest member. The sincere student who chose knowledge over naps was now their leader.
What a story. It leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. It teaches us this incredible balance. Be generous and welcoming to all, just as the Prophet was. But when it comes to your core principles, to the fundamental boundaries of truth and justice, there can be no compromise. So the question for all of us is, in our own lives, with all the constant pressures to negotiate, do we know where that line is?